Good evening, welcome to the August 22nd, 2017 Stow Board of Selectmen meeting, last meeting we will have this summer. First, as always, there is public input. Is there anyone here who wants to input on a matter of public concern that is not on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, I will move on to Chair's comments. Even though it has been a rather late in the season period, we had a number of things going on this past 2 weeks. First off, we had the Aries Danger Day, Aries Schultz Danger Day. That's the t-shirt I'm wearing here today. It was on Saturday night, or Saturday actually in the afternoon. It was very well attended. My colleague Mr. Ryan, I don't know if anyone else made it, was at the Pine Bluffs Center, and it was a way of support for a brave little boy and his brave family, and we appreciate everybody, especially the town employees, those here tonight, those who were not here tonight, who really did above and beyond duty in order to make sure that that event went on. Once again, our prayers and best wishes are with the family. Now, there was also, earlier that same day, a vet ruck, which was a number of veterans that were crossing the Commonwealth and stopped here in Stow because Mr. Ryan took it upon himself, quite admirably, to investigate this situation and learned that they were making a, I don't want to say pilgrimage, but a march across the Commonwealth in order to raise awareness to veterans issues, to raise funds. Anyone who wants to raise to help them raise funds can go on warriorthunder.org. Mr. Ryan deserves special commendation for investigating that and finding out that we could help them out by having a little bit of a breakfast. Mr. Ryan was there, I was there, Ingeborg Hegeman was there, and we gave him a break, gave him some coffee, gave him some breakfast sandwiches, and speeded them on their way. Anything you'd like to add on that?
I was just gonna say that Joe Jacobs, who's our veterans agent, actually
Thank you.
took the lead on that, and he checked them out, contacted them, and then arranged to buy them breakfast. So it was a good thing. They appreciated it, and you know, it's just an important thing. They're trying to help out veterans.
Thank you for reminding me of Veteran Jacobs' contribution. Third, our conservation coordinator wanted to let me know that the Sunday previous, the High Rock Church of Acton and Stow had a annual serve day, and approximately 120 members of their church, as well as our good and competent and lovely conservation coordinator, was there to clean up 323 Great Road property. Their projects included beaver fencing around shoreline trees, pulling invasive plants, removing a variety of trash and debris, and more. Plans for the park project on the site continue to move forward, and folks should stay tuned for updates. So we greatly appreciate everyone who turned out on that day and helped out. That's all I have, unless I've been out of town. I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. Then I guess we can move on to the full agenda. Starting off with meeting minutes. We have one set of minutes.
I was good with them.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Clerk.
just to show that I do, in fact, pay attention to legal issues, among others. Bottom of page 1 references the dam, but it does not identify which dam, and there are, in fact, a couple of other small ones in town. I'd like to suggest that it should read proper repair to the Lake Boone Dam on Barton Road, and further that the word would be suggested, changed to could.
Well, then I will reference the fact, I don't know if I did, that we're talking about the July 10, 2017 minutes, or proposed minutes that were regarding our meeting that took just place, just before our last special town meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we.
Just a minute, please. I'd like to insert for consistency's sake on page 2, repair of the dam should be Lake Moon Dam. And under Article 4 and 6, strike the word in, so it would move, Mr. Hawks move general support. That's it.
Do we have a motion taking into account those
I'll make a
emendations?
motion that we accept the minutes of July 10th, 2017 as amended.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
that's unanimous.
I'll abstain, actually, I wasn't,
As you wish. Sorry for not asking.
that's all right.
So then we've got all unanimous and 1 abstention. Let's see, can we get to correspondence within 4 minutes? I think so. Doesn't
We
seem to be
drag
much.
it out.
I just wanna, there's, I'm sorry, did I speak over you, Tom?
No.
Couple of, things look ready for appointment. There's like 4 applications for complete streets, which was nice to see. So whenever Jesse's ready for that.
At the next meeting, I think we'll
Oh,
talk
great.
about that.
And I just wanna say, I was very happy to see we have one seemingly well-qualified applicant for the Veterans Graves Committee. I was a little concerned about that. Martha Monroe has applied, and that is good to see.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
I think some of us reached out to her.
I think we all talked to her, yeah, so it's good, it's very good to see.
Thank goodness we didn't scare her off.
It'd be good to have active duty
Yeah,
representative as well as female member of the armed services.
But since we have a few minutes to kill, Mr. Salvi, would you like to pitch it to anyone else who might be watching or listening?
the Veteran Grave Committee, very important committee, that is responsible, among other things, for all of the decorations and the very elaborate and good ceremony that we have on Memorial Day. It has been understaffed for a while. There's 3 members. I think they are down to 1, 2,
Jeff Lance had indicated
because he was leaving.
he would like to be relieved of his
Right.
duties.
So I think there's Tom Zaborski, and he's alone, I think. So anyway, you have to be a veteran and live in town. I don't think there are any other requirements. But I don't know if the posting has expired already.
I'm not sure, maybe another day.
Maybe another day. So that was either a solicitation for applicants, or it was just a little bit of publicity and recognition for the good work that they do, or both.
Well,
Either way. I'm sorry,
I
Fran.
was gonna say is, if the posting has expired and we're looking for 2 people and we've only got 1, should we just ask Maureen to repost it in case anybody takes you up on your offer?
Maybe. I mean, maybe we should just take up at a future meeting Martha's appointment. If she's the only applicant, I'm not sure I didn't see anybody else.
At that time, we could repost, we
Yeah.
still have another vacancy.
Yeah. I think Mr. Hyde had something to add.
Oh, thank you.
Having been down there recently, I note that it's been a while since the monuments have been updated, and I'm sure there are Stow residents who have served in the last 3 conflicts that might appreciate permanent notoriety, if you will.
Yeah.
And I talked with Tom about that, and he's aware of it and would like to get something going, but as he points out, he needs some help.
Roy Dudley has approached me with regard, and others. We still have money remaining. There was a short list of names that he was provided with for that purpose, so Tom perhaps should reach out and contact Roy, and perhaps I can contact.
Madam Town Clerk.
Your posting for the Veterans Grave Committee states that letters will be accepted by the selectmen until the positions are filled.
Oh, thank you.
Great, thank you.
So that was publicity.
Timely.
And timely.
Good.
So we want to encourage any veterans who may be listening and watching at home or reading the accounts of this selectmen's meeting to consider if we could be so bold to ask for further service to their, at least their community, and perhaps serve on that very important committee. Well, that might have seemed a bit of a digression and a kind of, but we were vamping because we now had, we have a public hearing that is scheduled for 7:10, and we really can't hold it until 7:10. So now we do have that time, and that is the public hearing for the Red Ginger liquor license. With those who are interested, please step forward, and any abutters who have anything to say, we will check with you in just a moment. Please come on forward, introduce yourselves to our board. Brian Burke.
Tom Ryan?
Mark. Don Hawks, nice to meet you.
Mark, Jim
Mark.
Savvy.
Yeah, to get to it. I will now be opening the public hearing on the liquor license transfer. As is required by law, I will now read the notice that has been published in our local publications, as also required by law. Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the general laws that Red Ginger Restaurant at 117 Great Road in Stow has applied for transfer of liquor license to Red River Rock Inc., DBA Red Ginger. Public hearing will be held on the license transfer application on Tuesday, August 22nd, 2017 at 7:10 p.m. in the Stow Town Building, 380 Great Road, Stow, Massachusetts. Now, before we read or hear from the applicant with an explanation or a presentation, is there anyone who came regarding this public hearing here tonight on this liquor transfer? Because the whole idea of having a public hearing is allowing public comment if there is any. Okay, seeing no one, I'll, Mark,
Mark Singh,
do you want to spell that for our administrative assistant?
ZENG.
Thank you, Mr. Sang. And why don't you just explain why you want the liquor license transfer?
Alright, and the current owner, for the personal reasons, he want to sell the restaurant, so we are going to take it over. And so we need a liquor license transfer from MPY restaurant to the Red Rock Inc. to continue the business. So nothing else will be changed. Everything will be stay the same. We're going to keep it same employees, same values. So just continue to serve, the good food for the area.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Zing from the board? Mr. Ryan?
Do you have other other Chinese restaurants, or?
Yes, and the restaurant is close by is over in Wilmington, Mass, and called Golden Ginger, and they've been there about 9 years.
It's also called Red Ginger?
They're called Golden Ginger.
Golden Ginger.
That's right.
So now we'll have Golden Red Ginger.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Zing from the board? Mr. Selvey?
Do you have any involvement in the current management or operation of the restaurant?
Actually, yes, I'm worked there a little bit, so I'm kind of the management both of the restaurant.
Okay.
One the Golden Ginger and one the Ginger.
Oh,
So I'm work there.
You work there?
Yeah, I work there for a little bit to help being a current owner. So for the personal reasons, after he worked there for many years and he has backache, so
Okay.
he can't do it anymore.
So
So
you-
he gonna get, will you be interested in,
So
to
you're
take
buying
it
a
over?
business from?
So
Okay.
pretty much is pretty simple.
Mr. Zing, I'd like to introduce you to our select woman, Ingeborg Hegeman Clark.
Sorry,
Mark
Mike.
Singh, nice to
I'm
meet
sorry,
you.
we couldn't hold the meeting, but it's a public hearing, has to go off as scheduled. Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Selvey, you were not through?
I just want to make sure, so standard, I think, with a liquor license application or transfer is a background check, police check, I assume that's been done? Maureen? Has a background check or police check been done? Have we asked the police to
I
check?
think ABCC
Or ABCC?
does that,
ABCC
so I'll
will
just
do that.
make sure.
I will send everything back to the
Okay.
ABCC for the final proof. So ABCC is going to check everything is over. Sometimes take about a month or two for them to do everything background, everything check.
Okay, so we don't have
Yeah.
the results yet.
Right.
Okay.
We assume that
So every-
ABCC takes care of that and lets
One at
us
a time,
know.
one at a time. I'm sorry, Maureen?
We assume that ABCC takes care of all the paperwork and it's approved before it comes back to us to be signed.
Has it come back to us?
Yes.
Mr. Zing, you want to add anything?
Nope.
All right, even though nobody came here for this public hearing, are there any questions from the audience members who are here just by coincidence? For Mr. Zink or the board? All right, seeing none, I'll take a motion, close the hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move the public hearing for transfer of license for Red Ginger Restaurant be closed.
Second.
All right, Mr. Ryan gets a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman,
That, I believe, is unanimous.
I move to approve the transfer of the liquor license from MPY Restaurant / Red Ginger Restaurant to Red River Rock Inc., DBA Red Ginger Restaurant, as described in the application received July 21, 2017, and subject to a final approval by the ABCC Control Commission. Further, I move the board sign the local licensing authority review record for submission to the ABCC with the application.
Second.
I pray my colleague, Mr. Hawks' indulgence and the patience of my colleagues. Originally, this was put on just for a public hearing, but I believe some things came in today that made us, or put us in a position where we could
Yeah.
advance this to the vote that Mr. Hawks has just moved. Do you want to explain that to us, Maureen?
Right, we had originally thought we might have the CV license. It didn't make it onto the agenda. We usually do them in conjunction, but we got the paperwork back today for the CV license, so we'll do that at the next meeting. Now that we've received the paperwork.
Common victualler?
Yeah,
So this motion is all right, but not the next one.
Right.
right. Mhm.
Thank you.
It hasn't been scheduled,
Needs to be
actually.
posted.
Yeah, it hasn't been
properly.
scheduled or
Yep.
posted. If, I think that's the prudent course of action. I'm sorry, Mr. Zing, you'll have to come back again, just because the paperwork didn't get here. But, hopefully, it'll be quick next, time. You understand, now you've got now you can sell booze, well, depending on what the motion results are. Tonight we'll decide whether you can sell booze or not. Next meeting, we'll decide whether you can sell food or not, or at least have a license. I'm sorry, Mr. Hawks, do you have anything to add to your motion?
No, sir.
Do any of my colleagues have anything they'd like to add, or any further questions for Mr. Zing on this point? All right, having a motion and second, seeing no need to delay further, I'll call for a motion on the transfer of the liquor license as moved by Mr. Hawks. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that is unanimous. Well, we look forward to seeing you again, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to see you keeping it open.
Thank you.
Good night.
That brings us to a very interesting agenda item, and I see we have a number of members here. I'm looking forward to hearing from you all about the MassCEC, that is the Mass Clean Energy Center HeatSmart pilot program. Would you please come up and introduce yourself to the board in your town?
Certainly. I'm Sharon Brown,
Yeah, sure.
co-chair of the Stow Energy Working Group.
Brian Burke.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, gentlemen.
Assumed your hands are shaking.
And thank you all for coming. I'm sorry that Arnie couldn't be at the meeting.
He's in Canada.
Just to fill Arnie's shoes.
It would take a lot more of me than. But thank you for coming.
If you just do.
Yeah.
Was it something she said, or are you just planning on getting her when she's not looking?
Well, she's a little crowded here, so. You know, Sharon likes to.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
George. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for letting us present here. We are the Stow Energy Working Group, and what we would like to do is get your support for our next initiative, which is this HeatSmart program. So let me tell you a little background about what the HeatSmart program is. It is sponsored by MassCEC, you know, the Mass Clean Energy Center. And it's really about increasing the adoption of small-scale clean heating and cooling technology in participating communities through a competitive solicitation process that brings a lot of the homeowners together to get a discounted price to be able to install these heat pumps. This is very similar to the Stow Solar Challenge that we did. This is their pilot year, starting in 2017 to next year, 2018. And because it's a pilot year, they're only selecting 4 communities. And we would like to be one of them. We believe that we are just really ripe to be one of the selected 4. And the technology we will be using is air source heat pumps. And Jim, I know that you have one, right?
2 right now.
2, great.
Yeah. I don't know how they work, Sharon, but I have.
More importantly, do they work?
Yes, actually they do.
So, again, I mentioned that this is modeled after the successful Solarized Mass program. And we are gonna be one of 4 communities if selected. What they need is they need a municipal representative, and Bill Wrigley kindly raised his hand and said he'd do it.
I don't remember raising my
And then we need a coach, and you can all be self-assured it is Arnie Epstein who will be our coach, and a core group of volunteers, which a lot of us have been from the experience from the Stow Solar Challenge. And MassCEC will give us $9,000 for marketing costs. And here are the key dates. Our application is due September 15th of this year. We've already been working on it. They will, in October of this year, select which of the 4 communities will be part of this pilot. Next year, after we've selected the installer, the communities select the installers with MassCEC, we'll begin signing up customers in February, and then the program ends in July. Now, are most people familiar with heat pumps, Eric?
No. No.
Okay, well, I'll give you my cursory knowledge about it. Any more detail, we'll ask an engineer. But basically, the premise is that the air source heat pumps draws the air from the outside environment and pushes it into your house. So if it draws that heat from there, it goes through a compressor, and then it goes into your house to heat your house. You reverse the process, so it draws the heat from the inside of the house to outside, so it becomes cooling. It's very efficient. It runs on electricity, and it's much more efficient than your electric baseboard heating. Most people may be familiar with the ductless mini splits. In fact, the library, when you were redoing the HVAC, did, I believe, 2 for the, that's right, for the Melissa's office and also the other room. So that is already being done. Why heat pumps? It's really efficient. They've become much more efficient now. It used to be that heat pumps were great in the south, but the cold weathers, they wouldn't draw as much heat. But now they are becoming much more efficient, and they're really at a lower cost. If you look at this circle down there, heating is about 30% of total state greenhouse gas emissions. And we know by legislation that Massachusetts has made a commitment to do greenhouse gas reduction of 25% by 2020, and it's been mandated. So this would be a great incentive to contribute to that. So why Stow? There's really 3 reasons. First, we have the lowest electric rates in the state. Second, we have a high heating cost. And third, we have demonstrated community support for really working in a green community. So let me go first to the lowest electric rate. Now, this is an eyesore chart, totally know that. But if you look at that very bottom blue line, that's Hudson Light and Power. That's how much they cost in terms of electricity. The yellow bars up there, that's your major utilities, how much they cost for electricity. So the other thing about Hudson Light and Power, over 80% of the electricity it gets from greenhouse gas-free electricity. It's nuclear, hydro, and solar. So that makes it really very low cost to us and very greenhouse efficient. So let me go out to the heating costs. Again, these charts don't come out really clearly, but it compares Stow heating fuel with Massachusetts. 70% of Stow residents heat with higher cost fuels. Now, if you look at that light blue line on Stow heating costs, that's fuel oil. Look at Massachusetts generally, much lower. Okay, we use electric resistant baseboard heating and we do some bottle gas. So 54% of our heat comes from that fuel oil. So how many people heat with oil? No. Okay, huge cost in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. And so our heating costs are, because of that distribution, are significantly higher than other areas in the state. So let's compare heating options in Stow. So the top chart is the heating costs, and the bottom is the emissions of CO2. So if we look at that, if you do air source heat pump, the green line there, compare it to the bottom fuel oil, what we're talking about, it's 34% lower, half the cost of fuel. That's how much it would cost savings, because you would have half the cost of fuel oil if you were going to be heating with an air pump. They would also dramatically lower greenhouse gases. Again, bottom chart, look at the green line compared to fuel oils. It's really a no-brainer here. So if we take an average house in Stow, they would save cost savings of $600 per year compared to their fuel oil. And they'd save 10,000 pounds of CO2 savings per year compared to fuel oil. So now let's talk about community support. You all have been at town meetings. How many times has the town supported our open space, protecting our open space? We did it at the last town meeting. We have active conservation environmental groups. When we did the Stow Solar Challenge, double the number of families that we anticipated signed up for that Stow Solar Challenge. And we're now a Green Communities designation and receive benefits from that. And just recently, the board of our utility, Hudson Light and Power, passed a motion to support us getting involved in the HeatSmart program. Just give you our HeatSmart team. I mentioned Bill Wrigley and Arnie as our coach, myself, George, you've just met, Elizabeth Michon, who was part of our Stow Solar Challenge, Rick Lint, and Sandy Tuff, who has also been part of our Stow Solar Challenge. So, ending the presentation, we would like you, we request that the selectmen support for the town to participate in the pilot HeatSmart program. And with that support, we would put it in the application because they're really looking for municipal support and community support.
Just a process question before I open up to the board.
Mm-hmm.
So you want us to support, I guess we have language in our proposed minute, some votes. We just need to support the idea or
Yes.
support you?
Yeah,
As
we
the-
just are asking for your support, your verbal commitment and support.
Application.
Sign an application for the town, okay. I think that was my process question.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, Ms. Brownfield. Is there any comments or questions from my colleagues on the board? Mr. Hawes?
Yes, thank you. Knowing nothing about this, I mean, that was a very succinct primer on that. I appreciate that. Is there, what's the incentive, the cash incentive for individuals should we be, receive this? I know you're saying the long range is, you've got savings up to $600 a year.
Right.
What's the initial cost to get into the game to be able to do that in an average house that you cite? Anybody know?
It's hard for us to say. Jim, you might be able to say what was the cost. It depends on what you do, because you can do HeatSmart for a room, You can do, a heat pump for a room. We personally have a heat pump for, an office part that we have. You could do a heat pump for the whole house. There will be a rebate. Hudson Light and Power will offer a rebate. Again, because we don't know what the discount would be, it's hard for us to say how much it would be, and it's gonna be so variable in what we do. You know, are you going to try and do your whole house? Are you going to go ductless? There's a lot of variables in that. Can you give them an idea, Jim?
No, one of them came with the house, and then the smaller one, I don't recall the cost. It wasn't that much. Maybe you just want to explain though, Sharon, that it's gonna be like the solar challenge where the committee will select a vendor, and then the more people in Stow who sign up, the deeper the discount.
Yeah, that we've been conversation with MassCEC. We don't know if they will do the tiered system again.
Okay.
We know right now, because it is a pilot, that the 4 communities, once selected, will work with MassCEC to begin selecting the vendors and negotiating the discount. We have asked them specifically if they would do a tier. We haven't gotten specific information back on that.
Do I understand then, if we are selected as one of the 4 communities, then you'll be coming back to us with more price information, more vendor information, more tiered information
We
about
can
tiering?
absolutely update the selectmen on this, once we get more information, and certainly Bill, as our municipal representative, would be closely involved, in what the process will be.
Please inform the board on a regular basis.
And, okay, are there any, Mrs. Hagman-Clark?
Is there any reason not to go for the pilot program and wait for the larger program? Is there any benefit to being a pilot community as opposed to waiting? I mean, I know time is always a benefit, but.
Well, I think the thing about being in a pilot is you can influence it. Because we can actually start saying, to Jim's point about a tiered system, one of the successful things for the Stow Solar Challenge was that by tier, we had that thermometer out in the, by the town building so people could see it, and then when it started getting close, people started rushing to try and get into it because they could get the discount. So we may be able to influence things. The other thing they are looking, right now, it's the heat pump, but we're also going to be asking them if they would include water heat pumps to that. So I think the benefit of being a pilot is the fact that we could actually influence it.
And we're not precluded from reapplying later on for other main, you could check that out.
We would absolutely check that out.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
That answer?
Yep.
Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? Yes, Mrs. Helby?
Just a comment, there's a certain synergy between solar and these heat pumps that my wife and I have been talking about. If you have solar on your house, obviously with this, you can heat or cool your house for no cost, or for the cost of what's generated by your panels during the day at least. It has the potential to dramatically reduce your heating costs. Our system currently just cools, and we want to modify it or have it changed so it can also heat, because we got the solar panels as part of the solar challenge.
Right.
Final question, just briefly.
As long as
Try
you
to
are-
understand, is it most common that people do not do a whole house, but you still have can you do well, I guess you already answered, but if you can do, even in this temperate zone.
Well, what usually happens is that people will do it for the whole house, but they'll keep their current heating system as a backup, just to use in case we absolutely get really, really cold and you want more to be higher.
That was my question, thank you.
We use it, one of those smaller units is what we have in our bedroom instead of a room air conditioner, and we don't have central air, because one of us likes fresh air. But
too much information.
it really does give you the option of opening the windows on certain nights, closing them and having AC, and it cools that room down so fast. I'm really amazed. And then we have a larger unit that does not cool our whole house. we close off our living room and dining room, for those of you who've been there. But it cools the rest of it very fast, very quickly.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Ryan?
Do you see any downside in his signing up for this? It sounds like if they select us, you know, the town, people in town get to choose if they want in on it.
Absolutely. Same with
And
Solar's Challenge.
Same as Solar Challenge, and that's, so really, there appears to be no downside to us, from what I can see.
Mhm.
Am I correct that I saw, it maybe in another section, but do we have to negotiate a contract with MassCEC to go into this?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
So what it is that we're submitting an application and then they will select us
Mm-hmm,
for doing that.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, you ready for a motion?
I almost am, but as always, on something like this, I'd like to see if our town administrator has anything to add, because he's so intimately involved with our energy needs.
Happy to be part of that successful team that we've had. It's straightforward. I think we'll be able to ascertain through the inquisitiveness of the working group of the state as we go on. It's a pilot, which means even the process is piloted. But we'll ferret out the details and nuances.
Well, perhaps it's serendipitous that Mr. Epstein isn't here tonight and is up in Quebec, because he shines so brightly on our energy needs and technology that he sometimes, you'll forgive the expression, eclipses the other members of the Stow Energy Working Group. And it's a pleasure to see you all, and thank you very much for coming tonight. And I know with our town administrator you do a great job, but I don't want to prejudge our motion that I know Mr. Hawks is eager to make.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board authorize the town administrator to sign the signature and acceptance form for the town's application to the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, or CEC, HeatSmart program.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further question or debate? And I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you very much. I hope I wasn't spoiling my congratulations and gratitude by my glibness. Thank you very much for all the work you do. And tell Arnie we're looking forward to seeing him again.
Okay.
Is he up there checking on the hydropower in Quebec?
Something like that.
Probably.
Okay, now that brings us to the long-awaited Building Use Committee report and recommendations. We have,
I think Doug is driving that.
Doug is driving that. Do we need to, I was looking at Doug, do we need to call Jesse down?
You don't need to unless you find my information insufficient.
Don't don't throw it like that. I just don't.
That was instructive.
All right. Nice
You know,
answer. Come up and join
Doug,
us.
that was not
Doug,
what we
come
were
sit down.
suggesting in the least. Maybe we should have Jesse
I was
down.
primed. The town administrator was wondering whether we should have Jesse down too.
Let's have Jesse down if we can get him.
You gotta remember, Doug sat on this side of the table before, so he
Yeah,
knows how to
right.
deal with people like us.
Well, I certainly wasn't suggesting anything of the kind, Mr. Hines.
I think Jesse had other pressing matters upstairs, and I think was
Yeah.
hopeful that Doug would take this.
If he can't make it, he can't make it.
Yeah, I don't know that.
But I don't think Mr. Stedman would object if he wanted to start us along the road. Thank you, Madam Town Clerk. Oh, speak of the devil, and he will appear.
They wouldn't start without you. I am crushed.
Do we want to shut this off, or is it, do you have a presentation?
Sorry, I was trying to do that.
No, it's not your fault.
No. Yeah, let's kill it.
Please shut it off.
How do you shut it off?
Cool
Oh,
it
there you go.
down, but it doesn't always work. I'll plug it in a minute.
We can pull the plug.
No,
Oh, there you
don't
go.
let the light cool, $400 bulb.
No.
I just broke it,
Well, we'll just
Brian.
borrow another one.
I didn't do it.
Go with the fan over 20
Well, it's good to
minutes.
have you both.
Thank you.
Would you like to
It's
start
good
us
to
off,
be
Mr. High?
Yes. I believe if you turn to page 4 of the executive summary, all of our recommendations are there in our most succinct form. We specifically recommend that the old Crescent Street Fire Station, which is pictured later on in the report, be accessed at some time to a group such as SMART or, affordable housing. We don't see it as any.
The highway barn, correct?
The old highway.
The old highway barn, the old.
On Crescent
old-
Street.
old fire station on Crescent Street, yes, the old highway barn. As we pointed out earlier, it serves no function other than a storage shed, and we're attempting to end that process, and we want to, remove the building from the town's inventory. Some question as to how quickly we do that, but we are recommending that the board entertain, ideas of destroying the building, getting rid of the building, and, building or offering it up to affordable housing groups.
Okay.
Given the Stow's recent history with affordable housing and this current location, maybe it would be better received, so.
Are we gonna do it property by property? Okay.
On this one, Doug, this says 32,000 square feet, plus or minus. And this one says 3 acres. How come they look about the same size?
So on the fire station lot,
Yeah.
technically the parcel, well, there's some discussion about whether that parcel really included that whole triangle to the north, which is really used by center school. So rather than, what looks like a field is really I think it's the wastewater area for center school.
Yeah.
So rather than confuse it, I just tried to highlight the area that was the fire station.
Oh, so technically the lot.
Technically, the lot is bigger.
So technically the lot goes over.
We've
All the-
transferred a lot of that to the
all of
center
that.
school, to the school district for their septic system.
Because I was just thinking, it would be nice if that was really 3 acres, because it would certainly
Right.
indicate more affordable housing, but thank you.
So parking even on the back of that lot would not violate Title V or anything like that?
If you mean to the north, on the north side of the
Yeah.
fire station?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it would.
Okay.
No. I mean, as long as we weren't obviously in that
On the water
wastewater
side, it would,
area.
none of the
Yeah.
wastewater.
Oh, okay, that's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. As Rich Presti is fond of saying, you can't even fly a plane over Zone 1.
Yeah, we don't have one there.
I would like to
So,
continue.
as was approved earlier, jumping now, well, I'm gonna stay with the highway barn, and it's 32,000 square feet. It's not an ideal site. It's similarly sloped to Pine Point Road property. It's got a steep hill dropping down and, whatever can be done, but we didn't investigate the methods or the means of accessing the property, but recommend that it be done.
So if and you're kind of heading there, if SMOT either isn't interested or can't build, is there a plan B, or is it accessing it?
Accessing it.
Okay.
There are all sorts of Plan Bs. Everybody will do whatever they can to build wherever they can, but it's whether or not the select board wants to say, okay, we'll build another garage there. And our opinion is, right now, we don't need that.
Right.
Well, could it be used for some future town use? Possibly, but we couldn't come up with a list of town uses because of the shape of the property, and because of the other issues.
Oh, it's really outside your scope. I mean, we
Yeah.
appreciate what you've done. Unless you want to press that further, Mr. Selby.
No, I have a couple questions on the other properties.
Oh, of course, of course. But Mr. Hyde, I'm letting him
Yep, drive the
decide
bus.
how he wants to present this.
Yeah, so anything else?
To the degree that it becomes potentially available as a tax-paying property in the future, sign me up. I don't know the last time we've done that kind of thing.
I'm guessing there will be interest fairly quickly. There is some issues that we also did not investigate as to whether or not we need to maintain some sort of activity there to protect the building insurance-wise. whether it's abandoned or whether it's in use. And we believe it needs to have some sort of use continuing, people going through the door once a month or something like that to keep it from its abandoned state. But again, that will be something that MIAA would talk to us about, how to keep that building on the town roll until it's, actively being discharged.
Any thoughts on that, Mr. Town Administrator?
No, I think the next phase going forward, that kind of analysis.
Well, some of it's good just to check it out. My recollection is there were some people that were living there a few years ago. They kind of broken in and were living in there.
Yeah, I don't think that's on the eligibility list from Maya, but.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that did all that. I apologize for jumping out of order. Going to the Crescent Street Fire Station. Well, that building, again, nothing really new to report other than we recommend that the town departments who currently use it for storage continue to use it for storage, and that the cemetery department develop it into their space with an office and possibly a meeting room, move them out of the town hall and put them in the one space with their equipment. We don't recommend giving them all of that space. In our opinion, they don't need it all. And the police department and the fire department and the highway department do need space for off-season storage of equipment. It's either that or it's, as has been talked about, having then everybody take it back and then some of their equipment sits out in the elements.
It seems to, from your last presentation, it seems to have developed into a handy little niche for people, but I certainly want to open up to that property up to question and comments from my colleagues, but my burning question is, have we determined the structural integrity of that building or structure to hold any kind of equipment, or certainly people, like the cemetery committee?
Yeah, well, professionally, have we hired somebody? No. We have walked around it and we've read the engineering reports about the possible use of that building as another fire station. And to support that sort of equipment and that sort of human load would have required a significant upgrade to that building. But if the building is going to be a parking garage for lawnmowers, possible cold storage for the library, and an office for the cemetery department, there are very few upgrades that need to be done. The upgrades that we talk about in the report are approximately $30,000 for paint and linoleum and some insulation. Tearing out the kitchen and the bunk rooms on the second floor.
There'd be some ADA upgrades likely if the cemetery did want to use it for a meeting space. I know the door is pretty narrow getting in along, is it Hartley Road, and, or things of that nature, so might be a little more on to help.
Yeah, I suppose one of my thoughts is, you guys maybe have given it a lot more thought, but we are, the amount of meeting space or times that the cemetery department is going to meet is gonna be slim. My personal opinion is they probably don't need their own meeting room. They can meet, if they're gonna have a public meeting, they can probably meet here. And I know that we have been having some conversations with, reorganization. I agree that it's a great place for cold storage. I had actually thought, I probably should have put my input in earlier, but I had thought in my own mind that we might end up, turning off the heat there and, having really as cold storage, not necessarily have office there, and definitely not, have it as a meeting space.
Right, good point, but
Can I comment as a committee member?
yes, please let me recognize, if you don't mind, our town clerk.
So, knowing that the cemetery committee does meet with the residents that, not just for a meeting space for their board, but a space, meeting with the families, looking to go over the cemetery deeds and the other things that he has in the office. So that would just provide some, not, like I say, not a huge meeting area necessarily, but a little bit of bigger area to meet with the clients.
Well, and that's it, you know, an office space can,
Right.
you know, at the same time, I don't know what the, I'll call it ongoing reorganization may end up with, whether, you know, there'll be an office over at, the highway department available, or other. So, you know, I just don't wanna preclude it, but, I'm definitely, from a conceptual standpoint, I think it's a great thing to keep it for, you know, storage for the equipment and so on.
So I think our colleague, Mr. Salvi, had a thought.
GH has come before capital planning several times in the past few years, talking about his need for meeting space for exactly what Linda just referred to. He needs to meet with families of people who want to buy plots. And he has at various times tried to explore space in the basement of this building. It was sort of the genesis of last year's attempt to have a cemetery building constructed at I think Brookside. And believe it or not, the estimated cost of $1 million, given the square footage, was not out of line. And at the time, we all kind of said to him, GH, you know, how are we gonna justify building a new $1 million building when we got all this extra space? If you credit his claim that he needs some meeting space, and I do, and he's been saying it consistently for several years, not just in connection with this, then you gotta give it to the guy. He's gotta meet with members of the public. This struck me last year, and still does, as maybe the most cost-effective way of doing it. I hear what you're saying. I was kind of assuming Crescent Street was gonna become cold storage too. But compared to the $1 million building or any of the other alternatives, it looked pretty cost-effective.
Oh, I agree as far as, you know, having it for storage. You know, and I think I'm probably 3/4 of the way there. I may have misunderstood some of it also, but.
Are you guys done? Mr. Hawks, do you mind if we just hear a nugget from our town administrator first?
I always appreciate nuggets.
I hope I have one or two. I just wanted a distinction with a difference, perhaps. The nature of this discussion this evening, this isn't an action plan necessarily, so it's not like we're intending to vet out all the, and have to choose any. What this presents to you is thoughts on possible feasible alternative uses going forward, and I think further development and refinement of what's in here, and not necessarily to think out loud tonight about which ones are more preferable than others. We'll have time for that, because I have a lot to say about weighing in on space and other things, whether for the cemetery or not, but I don't know. I wasn't thinking this would be the night to go through all of them.
Well, at least the way it was presented here is that we would vote on accepting this. And
Well, you accept the report, not necessarily, that doesn't mean you accept every recommendation, so
all right.
That was my understanding too.
I wouldn't, if that's your understanding, don't make the motion, because that's not what I was thinking it was for, and I don't think that they were expecting you to have to evaluate all of the discussion and their recommendations and come up and make a decision.
No, there was an awful lot of information in there, and as I was
No,
going through it, I'm like,
none of us,
ooh.
including me, would be prepared to do that. We
Okay.
shouldn't.
No,
It's too much money.
I feel much better then.
I think the Building Use Committee wants to be done with their work, but,
That part's true.
Mr. Hawk,
No, I think that partially answers my question. I mean, if we get into that kind of, into the weeds, that deep, we have a lot of unused space at Pompo in the back there, where we might want.
And we do have space in the basement
Yeah.
that
So
will
we
be
don't-
renovated and improved that could
Yeah.
serve the administrative support needs of not
And
only-
which then might let you just use cold for cold storage. So there's all kind, as, I'm glad to hear we're not being asked to make that kind of detailed decision.
One point of clarification on the notion of cold storage. From the facilities department, we are not at all in favor of cold storage as you might envision it, where you shut off the heat. Secondly, the limited amount of heat that is in that building proved invaluable to the cemetery department as they worked on their winter equipment during snow removal time. They were able to work in a relatively warm space. So that and the other recommendations and from the facilities department, we would really suggest that that building maintains its some level of heat.
Any other questions or comments on the highway barn, or the highway?
Fire station.
Fire, apologies, when did I say that? Fire station building, fire station.
So I lived through the whole various committees on building proposals and the fire station building committee. First of all, I want to say this report is very professionally done, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. The whole thing's very good. Good overview, good orientation. Really helps you grapple with all this stuff. And in the course of all those discussions, I kind of got different impressions of the condition of that building. It's similar to the question the chair asked. You know, on one day you might hear it's going to sink into the ground because it's built on the site of the fire in the fire in the 60s. On the other hand, you might hear it's going to last 10 years. Do you think it will last at least 10 more years in its current condition without major repairs like a new roof? Is that a fair assumption?
No.
Okay.
I can't guarantee that the roof will last 10 years. It's a flat roof. I have no way of knowing firsthand how old it is. But other than a new roof skin, there's nothing to indicate that that building is in any danger of falling down or collapsing or uncovering some significant structural dilemma.
Okay.
Mr. Ryan?
You know, it's a lot different storing a couple of lawnmowers and a boat in there rather than a $500,000 piece of fire equipment that weighs a whole bunch.
Right.
And-
You're not concerned about the seismic stuff we were talking about.
Well, it's no longer a public safety building. It's a maintenance shed for all intents and purposes. And, you know, your point about keeping it heated, okay, I understand, but it's a whole different animal now that it's not a piece of critical infrastructure. If the roof leaks, there aren't gonna be people living there that will be, call it, in any health or safety issue because the roof leaks, you know, for some reason. And again, you know, it always, you know, if we hadn't done what we did, we'd probably still be in there. And you know, they would have made it work. But I think we have a much better situation now, and it is still a serviceable building for that type of activity.
Any more comments or questions from either my colleagues or from the presenters on the old fire station?
I was gonna say, I think part of the discussion early on about that building, just a view from 10,000 feet was, Mr. Ryan talked about this potential reorg in the future, and, I don't think the idea was ever that maybe the building was gonna serve some permanent function for some incredibly long period of time, but that at least it was a great interim function to understand how much space does the cemetery department really need? How much space does the highway department really need and really have? And if we get everybody condensed, get rid of the old highway barn as a storage space, get everybody under one roof, we really get a better sense of how much space do we actually need going forward. And I think so in one sense it almost acts like, a way to gauge what we'll potentially need in the future without knowing that right now. And so there was a few reasons for it. And so I think that I'm hoping that over time, once everybody's under there and using it and for different uses, that we'll get a sense of, what the future might hold in terms
You
of
mean
further
that
storage.
planning might actually have foresight involved in it?
Well, Who do you expect to start using that old fire station that isn't using it now?
Oh, no, I'm not saying there'd be any future use, it's just that, you know, getting cemetery in there, you know, the highway department I know is storing some items in there, the old sign is in there.
Right.
The police
Having got
barn.
everybody out of the old highway barn,
Mm.
there was a lot of discussion of, you know, part of the study was figuring out, well, where does the cemetery department really keep all their stuff? You know, how many roofs is it under, and how many, can we get it all under, at least most of it under one? I mean, so there was a lot of that kind of discussion that went into it, so hopefully we'll get a better sense of the long-term needs just by that exercise.
Well, that's it. For years, the police boat sat outside at the police station. Putting it inside because it's available makes sense, but we might not be willing to build something in the future for it, you know, but we'll be able to figure that out. I'm sure that it's, by it being inside, it's going to make it last a little longer, because it's not, you know, it's not exposed to the elements, and it's not, it won't be exposed to the, you know, the.
I think this
Mr. Hyde,
exercise-
and then I'd like to get moving forward to the next building.
The library, to answer your question. We had proposed to all of the various groups that the second floor of the old fire station is an air-conditioned, heated space that would be ideal for sensitive storage. And if we took out the bunk rooms and the kitchen, it's a fairly large area where the library, in whatever future needs they might have for storage of whatever they might need to store, but in a place that would be suitable for books, maps, rugs, whatever, that space is set up for it now, minus some minor demolition.
Before you, I think we should move on, but I just want to say, before you put anybody up on that second floor, I think you need to do a real thorough structural integrity. I've heard stories about, let's just say that I've got reason to believe that it may not be as sturdy as it appears. But having said that, and again, we're going beyond the scope of tonight's review, maybe we should go to another property?
Let's.
As you wish, Mr. Hyde.
Now the gorilla in the room. The town hall.
No.
The town hall is, trying very hard not to editorialize. Town hall is in bad shape and it needs help quickly. If you've looked at the roof, as I outlined the last time I was here, the roof is sliding off because the way it was replaced, when it was replaced quite a while ago. And no roofing company is willing to go up there and repair it. So that's the first indication. If you walk to the east side of the building and look what happened with the last superstorm that inundated the lower village, there's a foot of gravel up against the side of the town hall, covering portions of the door, covering the wall, covering the sills, in that area that is already compromised. And the list goes on. So the plaster's falling off because of water damage from 3 years ago. And we're recommending that another group put together an action plan to rebuild the town hall. We have included some really interesting price estimates on page 16 of the report, but if we don't recommend, the facilities department anyway doesn't recommend doing this piecemeal. There's so many different things that you'd want to do. The town hall has many potential attractive uses. It's expensive to heat the way it is. That can be remedied with money.
Heat pumps.
Yeah, well, but the town hall is being ignored because we haven't had, whatever,
We haven't been using it.
we haven't been using it because it hasn't been comfortable, because it's hard to get into, but a lot of people still want to use it. And if we don't do anything, the building's gonna come down. That's a little bit of the traumatization, but the roof's coming off and we can't stop that.
It's a serious problem. We got that from a report. Mr. Seven, do you have anything to add to that?
significant part is just that it's just vulnerable to fire right now. I think that's the big, the big unknown and a huge variable. So obviously that's a major cost consideration, but we tried to outline a few things in here that could potentially help with different funding sources, things like that. But we stopped short of trying to go room by room, floor by floor in terms of what uses could be for which, because it's really gonna take somebody working with an architect to understand what things need to happen on different floors before you can start figuring out what the new layout could be. And so we kinda took a step back from getting too specific.
It's an increased vulnerability to fire because it's no longer across the street from the fire department. Mr. Town Administrator, anything you'd like to add or amplify?
Nothing that would change the course of events or add substantively to it. I mean, this identifies and defines, which is what it was intended to do, in some assessment. It wasn't intended to provide a substantive, exhaustive, significant list of even by higher order of things. My only comment with regard to the town hall is I would emphatically support an effort of systems improvement with an existing facilities report done by an engineer sooner rather than later as a capital project. And then take advantage of our CPC funds, because this is a historical structure. I believe it's on the local inventory. I don't know if it's on the state and or register, or whether there's an effort to go, it would qualify. So I would say this, without any elaboration, it's probably historically as significant as any building, municipal building we have, and the sooner we get to that, leave aside purpose, systems improvement, get that building upgraded, stretch code compliant, all the rest of it, and safe, and there'll be plenty of viable options for use. So I wouldn't concentrate on usage. I would concentrate first on bringing that building up to code and saving it.
All right, those are very good points. I'd like to now turn it over to my colleagues. Any thoughts, comments on that piece of property?
Since you're referencing, Mr. Chairman, kind of the safety issue, it's kind of a drastic statement about the roof is sliding off. I can't quite envision that, but maybe you could show me sometime.
There's 2 layers of shingles, and there was get it done rapidly because the roof was leaking. Unfortunately, they didn't strip the roof, so they didn't get down to the sheathing. The sheathing won't hold the nails pop off and the shingles slide off.
I see. So when you say the roof, it's the shingles that are coming up, not.
Well, the sheathing, the wood,
Yeah.
won't hold the nails to hold the shingles on.
Which is why roofers won't go up there, because it wouldn't hold them either.
That's correct.
And the sheathing will hold the nails, it goes in so thin.
They're just old, dry rot, cracked, who knows?
I'm roundabout digressing slightly. Is there are certain groups that use that building a lot, very frequently. Is it a safety issue enough that we should be looking at trying to encourage them to find other space, the pump out, in the near future?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
I wouldn't.
It's, as far as, I'm gonna chime in on the fire safety issue. It's been that way for 100 years, that it's been a fire issue, and
Current usage is not increasing its deterioration rate.
It is not.
Okay.
And those that use it are using it specifically for that building, the floor.
Wooden floor for dances.
Well, there are other uses too.
Well, I know, but the dancers particularly like that wooden floor.
Okay. No,
Building
that's
gets quite a bit of use on a daily basis, I would say that.
Let me assure my colleagues that with town administrator support whatever, after tonight's recommendations, or at least the report is accepted, we're going to turn very quickly to that, and I'll make sure it's on the future agenda item, because we do want to do everything we can to save the town hall. Anything further on that municipal building?
just the last question, town administrator. Are you saying sooner, like go to town meeting
This
next
isn't
spring?
an emergency. What I would say to you is they should rise to the top for capital planning committee with use of CC. One of the things is we have the availability of a funding source.
Yeah.
The question would be how much of it, for what purpose, but that building is categorized explicitly for CPC funding. We have CPC funds. I think the sooner, much as we've done with the library and others, get a committee to come forward with a cost estimate to do a top to bottom on it and see what the price is. I'm not saying we do it all at once. I'm saying that we need to go through and get a list of, with the nature and extent of the damage, where it is, and then price it up, and then make decisions on getting started with it. That's my advice.
Mr. Salvi, then Mr. Ryan.
I certainly get your main point, which I think is separate usage and design, internal design, interior design, from preservation, focus on preservation. And then your other point about preservation is seek other funding sources, like try to get it on the National Historic Register. Do you do that first? I'm a little confused about process. I understand the idea of.
We don't know that we wanna do that.
That's not on the table for tonight. Getting it in the Stow, or getting it on the historic.
It's already on the town's history, and it's on in the state register. It's not on the national.
But we're not talking about that tonight.
I would say this is a funding source. It's like MSBA, it's like libraries. It takes a long time to get there, to get queued up and all the rest of it. From my perspective, I'll use your word, preserving the building. Meaning to say that it meets all the code, all those things that are public safety related. I'm not waiting for that. To the degree we're subject to some standards, then that's in place now and will be. But as far as a grant for funding for, I'm just saying that's gonna take years. And I don't think we wait years to get the building up to code.
Mr. Ryan.
I was just gonna say that, that's it. If the roof's failing, maybe we just need to, tackle the roof and
Yeah, we'll
make
see.
sure
I
there's.
think we need an engineer to do all that.
I think that's what they're saying, is that we're not piecemealing this building. And the other thing, if it is on the state register, we have to be careful that we're not demolishing it by neglect. There is a term, demolition by neglect, and so this elevates this one.
Very good point. We'll make sure that doesn't happen. Would you like to continue on with your report, Mr. Hyde?
I have said all that needs to be said.
Do you agree, Mr. Stedman?
The only things that we added that one might think were beyond the scope is we tried to tackle some of the long-standing parking discussions and traffic and circulation. Basically with the understanding that if we're gonna talk about changing uses, we have to talk about how people get to and from all of those uses. So we thought that it would be a good point to have that stuff in the report, especially since we're gonna be getting into some traffic planning here over the fall and winter, that we can, go back to this and use this as a reference. But I think a lot of these things are not immediate issues, but I think the committee was fairly in agreement that that intersection up there at Crescent Street, Hartley Road, Library Hill Road is probably the most used intersection by young people in town, and that there are definitely some improvements we can make, especially if we wanna, improve some of the access to those buildings in general. So I'll leave it at that, and we can talk about it another time.
I think your framing of this report as a reference and the plan for going forward is a very good one. That's why I might suggest whoever makes a motion, just want to say they will accept the report and discharge the committee from further work with our thanks and gratitude, rather than accepting all the recommendations. I'm sorry, Mr. Hyde, did you have something you wanted to add?
No.
He said he wants to serve on the next committee. I heard.
I was flashing back to the old days, I'm sorry.
Well, then,
I'll make a
I would
motion.
suggest we just move, accept the report rather than the recommendations, and we appreciate, and of course, our gratitude and thanks. Unless there's something you want to add, Mr. Hyde? No? Okay, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move, at your suggestion, that the board vote to accept the report of the Building Use Committee with profound thanks and gratitude and felicitations. Readings. Thank you.
And we're discharged, right?
And you're discharged.
Second, Clark. You wanna-
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
And you not only have the board's thanks and gratitude, you have the town's. Thank you. Thanks for coming down,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dunn.
You're welcome.
Thanks to everyone.
Thanks to the entire.
Thanks to everyone on the committee. That will now bring us to a discussion and vote regarding the Boxboro Road land donation. And I know we have some people here, but we also have a wrinkle that came up, I believe, just today. I was on vacation, so I'm not fully familiar with it, but why don't we have the people involved come on up? Thank you for waiting, gentlemen.
Of course.
If we'd known you were here, we would have moved you up.
Britton Nebraska, by the way.
How are you?
Oh, no, no.
Already at a deficit.
You're down early in the game.
Don, do you wanna come up? All right.
Just being the gray eminence in the back.
Either that or he wants to stab you gentlemen in the back. Why don't you introduce yourself down to the town and begin your presentation?
My name is Dave Bauer. I'm the division president for Toll Brothers, Massachusetts. I'm a resident of Westford, Massachusetts, and this is Britton Bradford, our project manager who oversees day-to-day operations at the Regency at Stow.
Thank you. Please continue.
Sure. Wanted to start with a very quick project update.
Sure.
I'm assuming all of you have driven by, and apologize for the mess, but it does require a bit of a mess before we can make things look green and pretty. We do have 29 homes sold. We opened for sale in February, and we're well through half the sales, and we're building a number of homes. And we do have, over the next couple months, as the planting weather is now upon us, a lot of landscaping work. We just paved the road, I'm sure you've noticed that, so now we're able to dress up the entrance road and the main road into the site and start completing the exteriors of the first couple buildings and get that landscaping in. The clubhouse is gonna start within the next few months. So going into the winter, I'd expect the appearance of the community to be substantially different and really start to come together and look like something residential. When we, any other project questions before I dive into the issue?
Have you encountered a lot of unexpected ledge?
You rubbing it in?
True attempt at humor. These are good faith questions to help us.
I can definitely give you a heads up on the geology. Yes, we've run into some ledge that always seems to find a way right between our test pits when we do our due diligence. And we did hit some ledge we didn't expect, and we've done some blasting, but we're getting through it just fine.
Is any neighbors being impacted by the blasting?
At the moment, we don't have any issues like that I'm aware of.
Well, I think we had one that was, the abutter had called the fire department and they had someone come take a look at it. But nothing, I haven't heard anything other than just that small snippet.
Are the abutters notified when you're gonna be doing blasting?
I'm not sure of the process offhand.
So when they pull the permit, any residential, I don't wanna misquote the footage away, how many feet away, but, when they do pull that permit with the fire department, they have very specific guidelines on their notifications, depending on how close they're blasting. And like I said, I don't know what that footage is off.
That's probably the blasting guys who know that.
Yeah, they have to pull that permit, the fire department busts off on it, says, all right, you have to notify abutters, et cetera.
Okay. Any other questions on the status of the project?
We had an incredibly hard rain about 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. Did that hit you guys kinda hard? And I was thinking.
It did, yeah. It hit us, very hard, and we actually had some erosion control challenges there, and we're working with the Conservation Commission on a couple spots where we did release some sediment through the erosion control. So not something we like to see, but the Concom has been really cooperative and has empathized with the challenge. It was a huge rainstorm.
Yeah, it was a tough one. It was very tough.
So we're mobilizing all kinds of added controls right now. By next week, it'll all be in place.
Second Clark, do you have anything?
Nope.
All right, no further questions on the status. Well, thank you for the update.
Of course.
Why don't you come to the point of why you're here tonight?
So during our approvals with the planning board, or I should even back up prior to that, when we went into agreement with Don, one of the things Don asked us was if we would work with him on trying to create an opportunity for the town to have some land along our frontage to be able to widen the road, create a place for snow, create a place for pedestrian access or walking along the road to make it a safer corridor. And we agreed to do that, and in our special permit we have a condition and our plans reflect a proposed granting of land along the road to the town
For the purpose of?
for the purpose of, pedestrian safety, widening the road, whatever you see fit. So we're making good on that promise. We're here, we've submitted a plan. I brought some details just to talk it through if you have questions.
Sorry.
And we really want to see if you'd vote to recommend to go forward with that and usher us through that process. I'm assuming it would have to go to town meeting, but
Yes, I think when our town administrator was on vacation last week, myself and other town functionaries tried to put this on for a complete vote tonight, but we realized since he's returned, it has to go to town meeting.
My position is simply this: as I read the motion, it was to accept the gift, which only the Board of Selectmen can do
Subject to
unless it involves land. Then it requires a town meeting vote. So even if they were to accept that gift, it would have to be conditioned with language that expressly referred to the town meeting vote, and then due diligence like title search and other things. And so because it wouldn't do you much good for that, and because it'd have to be conditioned, and I didn't have time to create all that language, that maybe a sense of the selectmen that they support the effort, and that subject to town meeting, they're expressing their support, so you'd know that. A motion to accept this gift would be conditioned and not certain until town meeting. So distinction without a difference, I thought, was you were probably looking more that they supported it. They control the warrant for a town meeting, so they could make the motion that they would include that request as a warrant article at the town meeting when the next one is held, rather than saying we accept the gift, because technically they can't do that.
my expectation was that you would vote to place it on the warrant and to support it.
Then that motion for me would be completely acceptable.
We weren't clear that that's what you also understood, and we appreciate your understanding our circumstance. Maybe we got a little ahead of ourselves. Thank God the town administrator got back from vacation, prevented us from putting our foot in our mouth. But if that's all you are looking for, I can't promise you anything but a vote on that right now.
Yep, that's fine.
I have a question.
Certainly.
If I may. I mean, first of all, I don't see any reason not to support this, and Don's talked to me about it several times, and I think it's a very, very nice gesture on his part and yours.
It's to our benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, completely. Perhaps I wasn't paying attention to the details of this project as closely as I should have when I was going through the planning board process. Can you show me on this horrible plot plan?
Yeah, the plan was hard to read.
Yeah,
So
he's got a
Yeah, I brought a couple
too.
things for you.
I'm
And
not
I have
clear.
we have a large plan. I don't know what would be easier, but I think I only have 5 copies, but
I don't know if this
This
is any
is-
better than what
Yeah,
he's got,
that is
but
better. So just show me where.
And maybe show the people of town, Washington Hall.
sure. All right.
So here's Boxboro Road.
Right, so this right here is zooming in on the frontage, this
Okay.
box right here.
Oh, okay.
And you can see this strip right through here.
So it really, so it goes, is this your access road right now at the top of the hill?
No, our main entrance
where is
is
it on this
more right in the middle.
Okay.
That's our main entry point right there. And what I just handed you is a zoom in of the entry itself. Right over here. Yep, that one right there. Where you can see this dashed line is where that the new right-of-way would move to.
Can you maybe place
Okay.
it in terms of the entrance to the airport?
Yeah, so on this one,
Just
the
all
entrance of the
parking?
airport will be down
Is
here.
Down here,
Yeah.
yep.
That little bridge is presumably around here.
Exactly, yep.
Here's your entrance at the top of the hill.
Where we've paved right now.
Right, and parcel X is where? Here?
The
It's
parcel
a
is the entire frontage.
The entire front,
entire
really is the entire front, okay.
Yep.
Okay. And there was talk in the letter about access to Don's property being through open space, and I just didn't understand what that meant.
In what letter? Yeah, I don't think that was our letter.
All right, I guess that's a tangential issue.
Yeah. So what is that?
how mu- just
about
approximately how many
20
feet on either side of the driveway? I think that'll
footage.
clarify it for most people.
Don't think I have a measurement of footage here.
Ballpark it for us, would you please?
1,800
You want
feet.
to scale?
Okay, thanks, Don.
So 900
That's
feet
why
on
we
either
draw them.
side of the driveway,
It
give or
goes from the
take.
log house down to the brook.
Okay, that's,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We
That's what I
got you,
need to
we
know.
got your input.
And one nuance to point out is if you look at the plan I just handed out that zooms in on the entrance, we would need to grant have the town grant an easement back to the community association to have the entry feature remain on that land. And on the island, we're prepared to go to the planning board and trim back that island if you feel that you'd like to see it come back a little bit, or that would just be part of the easement
The
for the
ta-
association to have those entry features on town property.
the town planner seemed to be suggesting, and it's premature because we're not gonna actually be voting it, he seemed to be suggesting that if we make an extension of the right-of-way, that you wouldn't need an easement.
Okay,
I
so
would-
that's a mechanism I'm not familiar with, but
That would
I
be-
can get educated on.
Yeah, that would give everybody access to, including you.
Okay.
I apologize.
Oh, no, the land itself, yes. What I'm saying is, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I was apologizing for interrupting you, but go ahead.
So the land itself, yes, an extension of the right-of-way, but the island and the entry walls and the landscaping beds, I'm assuming, and I'll do some investigation on this, but the town would need to give an easement back to the community association to maintain and keep those in place.
As it's drawn here,
Correct.
or you could push it back slightly.
The island we can push back, the walls are in and done, so
Okay.
we plan on
Okay.
keeping them there.
Now I will interrupt just briefly, because I think at this point, when we're talking about easements and
Yeah.
maybe we should hear from planning board and planning department, you guys can come back on that. Right now, all you're expecting from us is a vote on a motion to endorse the idea of taking land from you to widen that space along Boxboro Road that you just, Mr. McPherson just identified. Correct?
Yep.
And the thing is, rightly so, he's saying that part of it is kind of conditional because there's already a wall built in the middle of that, in the middle of that, so that's part of what, they're asking for.
Understood, but right now, all we can do is support the idea of accepting the land, and then a lot of this will be worked out with the planning department, and a lot of it will be worked out with the lawyers to make sure that all the easements and property rights are in order and aligned. Am I correct?
I think you are correct.
If you understood what I was saying, I'm
I
correct?
do. I think the task for us is to put together exactly what the scope of the warrant item will be. And I think it will be for the town to accept the land and also to grant easement for those features that are gonna stay in the right of way. But
I think you put it better than I did, and we'll be looking forward to that, and I can, if the motion is in your favor, we'll, of course, commit to working with you on that.
Great.
And just because I keep saying if, it doesn't mean I'm being negative, I just want to be non-prejudicial. Yes, Mr. Selby, you have any point?
Would the chair entertain a motion to support putting a warrant article to support this donation, to implement this donation on the next town meeting warrant?
Ms. Hagan Clark, did you want to make that motion?
Oh.
No.
Oh, okay, I thought I heard you say, okay. Yes, I am prepared.
Mr. Chairman, I move to place on the warrant for the next town meeting an article to implement the donation of property owned by Toll MA1 LLC, known as Parcel X, to the town as an extension of the right-of-way on Boxboro Road.
Second.
Any further questions, comments, or debate? All right, then I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Gives you something to go away with, for your efforts and your,
Yes,
and your
sorry.
patience tonight.
Thank you, yes, thank you very much for your patience tonight.
Well, hard
Sorry.
giving away land.
prefer to buy it.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for your time, appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Gentlemen.
Continued good luck. A continued welcome to our town.
Thank you.
I've dropped it several
Thank you.
times, it's fine.
Thank you. Now, That now brings us to the discussion vote, RE Chapter 61B, Cross Street Right of First Refusal. As my colleagues may remember, I mentioned this at our last meeting. There was a 61B notice that the town received regarding some property on Cross Street. Our rapid response team asked for input from all town departments on whether or not they want, there was a municipal interest to be expressed for exercising that right. And at that point, if I recall correctly, there was no stated purpose, but we were going to get everything in writing and all our ducks in a row. I'll turn now to our administrative assistant. Has that process been completed?
Yes, we have heard from everybody, including Spot, who is not interested at this time in the property.
So they've signed off saying they're not interested. That suggests to me, to my colleagues, that without an expressed interest, we don't have a real reason for exercising that right. But I turn it over to my colleagues for their thoughts and views.
Do you like a motion?
I would like a motion. Mr. Chairman, for the sake of discussion at least, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 61B, Section 9, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to decline to exercise the town's option to purchase or assign its option to purchase the 1.54 acre parcel owned by Stow Holdings LLC is described in the notice of intent to sell dated July 19, 2017, and shown on Stow Assessor's Map R11, parcel 25B8, and to send written notice to the landowner.
Thank you, Mr. Hawks.
Second.
We have a second. Now, is there a debate on this motion?
Is there somebody who'd like to?
Does anyone want to be heard?
I'm here for Stow Holdings, I'm fine with,
You're showing a great deal of wisdom, sir. Not usually shown at public meetings. He doesn't want to, I don't know the gentleman's name, but he doesn't want to screw things up. Does anybody want to,
He's got the sale, take it, run.
No, I mean, this is why we invented this process, was to see if anyone's interested. If no one is, then to quickly waive it, so. It makes perfect sense to me.
I'm good.
I'm good with it.
The motion.
Are you gonna call it?
Yeah, I will.
I mean,
but
it's already been seconded.
I just wanted to know if you had any debate.
Nope,
Any
no
debate.
debate, none.
All right, then I will call the question. All in favor of declining our right to exercise the option? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
staying through.
You'll get the recorded vote in writing.
Thank you.
Since it's close to you right now.
I'm witnessing your signatures.
Uh,
Can you just
And,
sign the book?
yes, and while we're signing, maybe I could,
Brian, right there.
yep, thank our rapid response team for, and our administrative assistant for following through on that to make sure that there was no expressed interest, municipal interest in this property.
On right there. Thank you. Tom. Right there. Oh, go ahead.
Also, thanks to all the towns and departments who responded so rapidly to our request for interest.
And
It
then
helps the
very
process.
Is there a market for these signatures?
I don't know.
We did miss seeing Mike Kopczynski in here tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Invite him over for a beer, I'm sure he'll come. All right, that brings us now to the discussion vote for term alteration for alternate appointees to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC. As you all know, I'm on vacation, so I might not have been following this as closely as I should. But Mr. Hawks, can you explain to us what we're gonna do
Well,
tonight?
the letter we all have in our packet explains that the terms are both full members and alternates members of MAPC, representatives from the towns, are 3-year terms. And just through negligence or oversight or fell into a crack, they came up with our annual appointments. And so I, as an alternate, was reappointed by the vote of this board to a term for 1 year expiring in 2018, when in fact it should have been 2020. Is that right? Okay, well, we got the motion.
Had that other vote.
Had the other vote. We got the motion.
I got it.
New information.
So,
New information.
it's just housekeeping.
Null and
Okay,
void.
and can you tell us?
Want a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, unless Mr. Hawks would like to tell us briefly.
No.
Okay.
I don't want to.
Let's go forward.
I move to amend the term of appointment for Stow's alternate representative to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC. Currently, Selectman Don Hawks, lengthening it from 1 year to 3 years so that the term ends on June 30th, 2020. This is in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, Section 24, establishing the MAPC and describing its governance.
Second.
All right, any further discussion or debate? All those in favor, and thank you, Mr. Hawks, for stepping forward,
Aye.
say aye.
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 All opposed? Again, that's unanimous. I see that there is no town administrator's report tonight.
No, I begged off it because I just came back from vacation yesterday and I haven't finished going through all my emails, so I wasn't quite sure what it was.
So that's the.
I beg your indulgence
That's the
and
report.
if
Sounds
you want,
fine.
I'll,
Sounds fine, then I think, unless my colleagues.
One
Yes,
quick
Mr.
question, just kind of perennially, not perennially, but each week. Anything, we're on track with the dam contracting and the Lake Moon Dam?
we've got the engineer on board and we're starting the scoping. and-
Did I miss that at the meeting that I was at before?
No, I think.
I missed the last meeting.
Oh, I think I said that at the last meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
You can watch it on Stow YouTube.
Okay.
Anything else from the town administrator before we send him on his way to Orange? The friendly town.
The friendly town, don't forget that one.
Well, thank you, Mr. Town Administrator. Now we're just gonna waste time and air.
So with regard to any policy development?
Yeah. Suppose you're skipping out on this.
Don't necessarily include my name unless, there's,
This is just a noodling about, we're not taking a vote, we're just
Okay.
threshing things out.
You're the
We're-
policy
and you
makers,
got my
I'm
e-
operations, that's all.
Yes,
you
and
know
you
what I'm
got my
saying.
email saying we weren't asking, I wasn't asking for planning, for town departments, their ideas. This is strictly Board of Selectmen policy ideas.
I'm happy to volunteer, but only after I know what.
Yes, it's not even at that stage.
Selective volunteering.
All right, thank you. As many of you know, as I hope you all know, that it's been my thought for some time that the board should spend a little bit of time at the beginning of this term, or as close as possible, given our workload, to decide what we want to do in terms of policy initiatives for the coming year, and if anybody has any ideas or thoughts.
The only thing that I've really thought of that that I'd like to see put forward, and actually SMART has already started it by inviting us to one of their meetings. I know I don't seem to be on the same page with them, so it'll be good for us to, get together and try to hash out some of it, because I think we do need to develop some affordable housing.
And also to find out what SMART could use in the way of help from our board and our town in order to further their mission. I think that's a good idea. Anything else from anyone? Because you know where this is going. 'Cause I wouldn't.
Executive orders from you?
No executive orders from me. Those are totally inappropriate, but,
Tweeting?
well, no.
We're not gonna let this
No,
rest,
no.
Brian. You have set yourself up.
No, but I have. Look, I've mentioned this facetiously at times, but you heard at our last special town meeting, there was a resident who got up and talked about how they didn't know what was going on with the Board of Selectmen. They didn't know what was going on with the agenda items. They didn't know when things were scheduled. And it just seems to me, especially during the summer, there's a lot of things that goes on in the town. There are a lot of things that go on in this town that people don't get enough advance notice of. They aren't engaged civically on a level that is satisfactory. We can rely on our local periodicals reporting, and we're very grateful for news and the media that cover us. We hope people will go on to the Stow YouTube channels and see our meetings, but I think we should set up something that is more in line with today's socially media conscious residents. Something that we can use the town website to better effect. We're not making great steps there. Maybe we don't need a Twitter account, but maybe the Stow Board of Selectmen needs a Facebook page, and I want to assure my colleagues and anyone who's in this audience and anyone who's listening at home that I am not talking about policy or sending out or arguments or discussions. I'm just talking about letting people know when notices of first refusal come up, when we're having town meetings, things that just, especially during the summer, don't get percolated through to the consciousness of the town, because we got so many things going on. The Ari Schultz event. These are things that I think we need to reach out to the town and advise them of in ways that haven't been tried up till now. Thoughts from my colleagues, thoughts from the town clerk.
You guys go first?
Mr. Chairman, when you're talking about perhaps items during the summer is one thing, but I think we saw examples at both recent town meetings where it was alleged that people were not aware of things that had been duly noted over, in the case of Pine Point property, as an example, going back to 2013, and people contending that they were unaware of any such use intended for something like that. I think that if it's just a notice board, one thing, I would like to hear the town clerk's comments on it, because I think that we are complying with it. Just like when a policeman stops you on the road, you can't claim ignorance of the law as a defense, just because people don't pay attention until something happens to be in their backyard and under their nose. To claim ignorance of what's been going on is, I don't give it too much credence. Thank you.
Mr. Selby.
I think there's some merit to it, but I think if you put it on a practical level, it becomes, there are some practical difficulties. Number one, I think there's been a lot of success in municipal departments that have done Facebook, our police department, the Concom, the planning board. They all have very successful Facebook pages. I think you are correct that now all of a sudden websites are becoming old-fashioned, and social media is where it's at. The problems come in, well, and I agree with Mr. Hawks, you can have Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, anything, and there will still be plenty of people on certain issues who say, nobody told me. So you're never gonna avoid that, but there are other good reasons to do it. If you're gonna do something like a Facebook page, you're talking about staff time. No one selectman can speak for all of us, so it would have to be staff. So it would have to consult with the staff about whether they have the time to do that. I do think, I've seen some of the proposals, I think telling people about information, so pushing information out, I think there is a place for that. What I don't think there's a place for is starting conversations online. That's what public meetings are for. Recent experience has shown what you get often are anonymous trolls with not very worthwhile comments, and then you're into
Or
this,
non-anonymous trolls with worthwhile
or
comments.
non-anonymous trolls with worthless comments, and then you get into this quandary of when you have a public meeting, do you have to read the comments? For pushing information out, which is what I think you're talking about, I think there's a place for it, but you really gotta consult staff about what they can maintain, because they're really gonna wind up maintaining it.
And then, I suppose, to get into that, are we going to be deciding what gets put on there, so will we end up having to be discussing it at our meetings?
Yeah, new agenda
It's our
items.
plate. It's our, it's the Board of Selectmen's Facebook page.
Somehow the Concom and the planning board, and, you know, they managed to do it, and I don't know how much time the actual commissions and boards take up talking about it, or if they just trust staff to post things that are relevant. I don't know.
Second Clerk?
Well, I think there's certain, I'll be very honest, I've never gone to the Board of Selectmen website, so I don't know what's on there. I assume the minutes are accessible. But do any of our correspondence folders get up there? Because sometimes those are like information that's addressed to the public through us that may get scheduled at a later time, so it gives people a little more heads up. So I don't know if that's a possibility. I am totally in support of pushing information out to the extent that we can. I think everything you've said, Jim, is valid with respect to open meeting, and I know that being on the Conservation Commission, we rely on our staff to post information on our website and on our Facebook page. We're never gonna make everybody happy, but I think, you know, to the extent that we can put stuff on our website, make our I know the webpage is going to be redesigned, because this page that we have now is a standard page that was probably sold to 50% of the towns like 15 years ago, and it's not that user-friendly, so hopefully a new one will be, just to let people know where things are. Or if we put any of our motions, I mean, the minutes are up there, the motions are up there after the fact, any plans that we may have gotten, if we post those, I don't know. I mean, it is probably more work for our staff, but all those things that we've made decisions on, like, will people be able to look at this plan and say, oh, this is what they meant by Boxboro Road? You know, I don't know. Is that a possibility now?
Madam Town Clerk, you've now heard from all of us.
I'm ready to go here. So as the records access officer and a part of the new public records law, they want, the supervisor of public records wants as much information on the websites or out there accessible to the public. So Ingeborg, exactly what you're saying, the plans and the discussions and all of these things, put them on the websites and get them up there. I do know that a lot of people, I am one that does not do Facebook. So I look to our website for information. You can subscribe to news. You can subscribe to Selectmen's agendas. You can subscribe.
Oh, you can do that now, though?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Well,
You can
that's a really
subscribe-
cool
Yes.
You can subscribe to
It's gonna
YouTube.
be, and I'm
Selectmen's
hopping out of my
separately.
chair, because I'm so excited about this new redesign, because right now, there are only 10 licenses for the website, so that there's 10 staff people that are putting stuff up there. Planning Board, Concom, Selectmen are very active. Finance Committee has been more active, thanks to Julianne's help of doing, who's sitting over here, who's doing some stuff with Finance Committee, getting agendas and minutes, and we've got more information on Lake Boone Commission up there. But the new design is more people are going to be able to access it at other departments and other committees, but rather than relying on just a few people to get the information up there. It's gonna be a little bit easier, and also, it will push stuff out. We're gonna have a training tomorrow, but it's supposedly, when I go to put something up there on the calendar, saying that we're gonna have a town meeting, I can push it out to Twitter, I can push it out to Facebook, and get it on, I don't think any of us have a Twitter page, but towns could have the Facebook page, I know Concom has it, PD. So those things would go out automatically rather than having to post in 2 places, that's my understanding. One of my complaints is with Facebook now, there's information on those Facebook pages that don't get to the website, so we don't know about it unless you're going out there. But it's gonna be better, there'll be more, like right now, there are only a few boards that are on the subscription list, Planning, Concom, Selectmen, one other, maybe a couple other boards. But we intend to get a bigger list, so that if you wanna subscribe to the news when the agendas go up, or when the news and announcements go out, or when the minutes are up, you can subscribe to those, and you can subscribe to those now, right from our current website.
I'm going to take the chair's prerogative just to jump in here, and then I will, of course, perhaps I should have mentioned this earlier, but a few weeks ago, I had breakfast with Atlee Thorenson, because this is a theme in his campaign about getting things out. And I'm not going to speak for Atlee, but he had some very good ideas. He understands this stuff. Is there a place for Atlee and maybe a Board of Selectmen member to get involved? Because he did
So
have,
the
he
thing
thought
is-
the website was a good idea. He thought the website was well done. It needed to get out to more people.
Exactly, exactly.
And he had some
I
ideas.
think we do more promotion, and so you say that a lot of people don't look at the website, they don't look at, there's a whole group that does. They really do. And so if you can get, so that if things are put on the website, so we know that there's a place to dump, you want, for lack of a better term, dump all the information. And then, but also can push it out to those Facebook pages that are existent, or if you wanna have your own or another one. Cause the younger kids, and I think, or the younger generation, are tending to use the Facebook, and their seniors are starting to use that now because they're connecting with their kids. So, but then getting the word out, people need to know that they can do these things. So, whether it's
Put it on
through
Facebook.
Facebook, put it on the web, put it at your meetings, it's in the clerk's corner, it's in the newspaper. So one of the women at town meeting got up and said that they didn't know about some of the stuff that was going on. She came to our office afterwards to do an absentee ballot, so we said, so what should we do? What could we do? Where could we put it? We put it town sign, it's in the paper, warrant sent to every household. People should have had an opportunity to know that these things are going on. And she said, well, maybe a banner over the streets so that it advertises town meeting or elections.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine, but that's one more tool. I mean, we're using as many tools as we can right now. I mean, I can't say I'm gonna be going on Facebook, but I will keep the website.
No one wants to decry your efforts, Madam Town
No,
Clerk.
I don't, but I'm
And
just-
I am just noodling about
No, I
some
think
of
it's
the.
great. I think it's great. The more,
So, and again, I wanna hear comments and, input from the entire committee.
and I actually wanna say that, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman, but the IT director, Ron Eld, he is, I'm taking some of his thunder, but, because he's been, working with virtual town hall in schools, which does our website, but, it's a joint effort, and boards, we had Kathy Safira was on it, Jesse Stedman, some others looking at ways to improve the sign, and it's coming out in September.
Well, that's great, and we're all looking forward to it, but I just wanna let my colleagues on the board know where I was heading with this,
Sure.
which is, and then I can hear from them, and is that I wasn't trying to get a Twitter account, I wasn't trying to do, but I wanted to just talk about the idea, of maybe having a working group to work with Linda. Atlee has some ideas about how we can get this out. Anyone else who's interested, and we're not gonna form it tonight.
Right.
I'm just kicking it around.
Yeah, I've talked with Atlee, and
Oh.
This was before, back months ago, and before he was running for election. We talked about problems with the website and not to find these, but then there are other people that say, we have a lot of information on our website. We just need to be able to, get people to look at it.
Get people to look at it and target the information so they can find what they look at. And I'm just talking about maybe having it could be an informal working group where Atlee, the town clerk, Ron Eld, we just sit down and go over the ways that maybe other towns are getting the word out there too. Am I making sense to my colleagues?
Well,
for a
it
change?
sounds like some of this is already in process.
Yes.
So, what I would do is since this is gonna be rolled out in the next month, maybe check into it and see, and talk to Atlee and see, he might say, this is exactly what I wanted, thank you, Brian.
No, I'm not here to
No, no,
satisfy
no.
Adley. I'm here, nor am I trying to defend our actions.
I'm just giving you a hard time, Brian.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just-
Well, how about this, maybe Adley and I can meet with you and Ron Eld, and
I mean, I think you're gonna be pleasantly surprised to see what.
I know I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, you will. I'm so excited about this new, there are so many things and features about this that I think that we're really excited about.
And once we get it up and running, we need to get this message out to the town so that
Right.
they know what's going on,
Yeah.
so we can say to them, don't complain, like
Right.
Mr. Hawk said.
But
Okay,
they'll-
yes, I'm sure.
And this is what I want to say two things. Number one, there is one basic thing that I'm not sure we're doing, which is, are our packets being posted to the website? Are our packets being posted to the website, Maureen?
No, we talked about that at one point, like school committee did, and I think we decided at that time not to do that before the meetings. It could go up right after, but we can discuss that.
I think we should discuss that, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
sure.
because if something's being provided to us with the anticipation that we're gonna be using it in a public meeting, it becomes a public document, and I'd like to see more people here, you know, how many times are we sitting here, we're looking at something, we know what we're talking about, and everybody else,
Nobody does.
they don't know what we're talking about.
Part of that, I think, Mr. Salvi, has been since, it's only, not all the members still get their packets electronically. A lot of people come in here and get, a lot of colleagues, and I'm not saying they shouldn't get their.
Two of us.
You and I are in the 21st century.
I'm
and
not
we
trying
have
to
our-
say that, Mr.
Our
Salvi.
Luddite colleagues, I
I'm not
know.
trying to say that, Mr. Salvi. You complain.
I'm
they
saying
have.
it.
He's got a pile of paper.
I'm
Yeah,
saying-
I have a pile of paper today because I'm coming from vacation, but what I'm saying here is, what we need to do is start to anticipate those things that we haven't been thinking of only because we haven't been at that point yet.
I agree, it's definitely worth some effort, but I just want to reiterate the point that I made, and as some of my colleagues, you're never going to satisfy everyone. And a little anecdote, when I was on the pedestrian walkways committee 7 years ago, it involved building a sidewalk along a relatively short stretch of Great Road. And I and another member of the committee, Chris Weil, spent an afternoon walking and going to every house and knocking on the door and handing literature to the people who answered, and for the people who didn't answer, we left it in their door. And we still had people come to the public hearings and say, I didn't know this was going on. I didn't know this was going on until last night. It's asymptotic to zero. You're never gonna complete.
It was what?
It approaches zero but never gets there. Eliminating the complaints.
The other thing, to your point, Jim, is the amount of staff time that it's gonna take, you know?
Right.
Well, we can review all those, and Linda and I and Natalie and Ron can talk it, and then come back to you and see if it's something that you can get behind. What I'm trying to get across here, though, is I'm not trying to do this as a defense or to say to people, okay, we gave you notice. I'm trying to increase civic engagement in this town, so that people come in and they're part of the town, not so that we can just say, hey, we gave you notice, but to say, what do you want to tell us about what we're doing?
But I think we're all trying to do that.
I'm not saying we're not, but that's how I'm approaching it, not so much, look, there are going to be people who are never going to be civically engaged, but we can increase that level of civic engagement. Do you agree, Madam Town Clerk?
I think this is an issue that all of the towns, not just in Massachusetts, but everywhere, are dealing with. Trying to get people involved in their lives are busier, and people have to pick and choose what they can do. And so some may get the information and not do anything about it, and others just ignore it or don't want to. But I think we're making a great effort to get information out there and putting it there. It's just, trying to get people to be involved.
All it costs is time and money.
Well, hopefully not much of either, but thank you very much, Madam Town Clerk, for staying so late just to tell us what you're doing.
I stayed long enough and I didn't have to do chores.
I take it then that you don't mind if Adley and I stop by and maybe...
No, I'd be glad to talk to you guys. I mean, I think a lot of your issues will be answered in the new rollout. And I'll be glad to show you.
And
I suggested talk to Maureen, too.
Yeah,
because
Maureen.
she'd be the
Maureen.
one posting our stuff.
That's a great suggestion. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to admit you, but I'll try to set something up if that is acceptable to my colleagues on the board.
Acceptable.
And I promise I won't set up a Twitter account.
That's what we all fear.
I know.
The Shecky Twitter account.
Your phone.
Because I know I'll get a bad nickname.
All right, that's all I wanted to talk about tonight.
That's a great idea, and I have an answer to Jim's comment about posting our packages. Once it hits the emails, it's public information, and it could be posted.
Yeah.
End of discussion. But I know this board loves to talk about things, so you can talk about it another night. What's next on the agenda?
So I take it Ms. Hickman Clark, our juniorest member, is moving the agenda forward. Perhaps a good idea. Thank you, Linda. We now move to liaison reports. Are there any liaison reports?
Where you starting?
You have to start somewhere. It doesn't.
I was just looking to see if anyone had any. We'll start from the right.
Of course you're gonna.
My right.
Well, I know the rec committee.
Please ignore.
Yeah, don't you worry. The rec committee met yesterday. I was not able to go, but I know they're continuing to work with their landscape architect on plans for their properties, but that's all I can tell you.
Well, thank you for continuing to meet over the summer. Mr. Ryan?
Oh, I've got a couple things. One is, as you mentioned, we were at the Vet Ruck the other day, you, myself, and Ms. Hagerman.
As I mentioned.
Yep, and so it worked out well, but, so, I'm glad that you mentioned it when you did.
I have one regret about that. We should have given them a bushel of peaches. And, because they were very interested in what Stow was like, and I said, oh, we're an agricultural town. Peaches, peaches. I went, anyway.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Next-
You live and you
next year,
learn.
Next year, next year.
We'll set up protocols.
The other thing is, as far as the Area Danger Day, I ended up going. I was there at 10, 2, and about 5:30, 6 o'clock. So I ended up being there multiple times during the day. Setup went smoothly. There were really no issues. There was one woman who twisted her ankle, ended up transported by the ambulance we had down there. I must say that one of our new Lieutenant Benoit, who was one of the volunteers that was down there, I've never seen somebody so quick in my life. I saw a woman trip, and he was there before I could turn around. He happened to be walking by, but I just kind of wanted to give him a little bit of a shout out because he was so quick on his feet that he was there almost before she hit the ground when she tripped. But it was a beautiful thing. But we had 3 firefighters, Lieutenant Benoit being one of them that was down there that volunteered for the day. The police were down there. Detective Sergeant Solis did a great job. All the volunteers down there kept everything under control, and I was specifically there at the end to make sure, see how they were complying with the terms of the liquor license. They stopped selling tickets right at 6 o'clock. So everything went smooth, and the place was clean. They cleaned everything up, and I'll have a written report at some point from Sergeant Solis. But all the organizers were happy, the police were happy, fire department was happy, and I think everything went very, very smoothly.
Does Alex, you have questions, Mr. Ryan?
Just, I'm sorry I missed both of those events, especially as a former, as a veteran and a former veterans agent, veteran service officer. But I was away in Maine over the weekend, so forgive my ignorance on this. How was the turnout? They were projecting 700 people. Any rough estimates of number turnout?
I think as of Thursday before, they had sold over 400 tickets. My understanding is that the final ticket count was over 600.
So they came pretty close.
I believe that that's the case, but there was at least 400 pre-sold as of
That's great.
Thursday. And Mr. Conley was in touch with the police, as we had requested, told them how many pre-sale there was. The bands were good. It was set up very, very nicely down there. And Mr. Conley also sent a nice note to Chief Bosworth, which I got a copy of, basically saying that, what a good job the police did, and it was a pleasure to work with Chief Bosworth and Chief Landry to keep everything under, to get everything going well.
Any other questions for Mr. Ryan? And it just remains for us to thank him for stopping by on those various times. It was a good idea to have a select person checking in. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I've got one other thing too, which is kind of an honor for Captain Benoit here in, our Captain Benoit. He has been selected to take part in the Mass Firefighting Academy's Chief Executive Officer program.
Really?
He's
Wow.
been,
Oh, that's good.
it's a very selective process.
Yeah.
And, he's been diligent in the last couple of years, putting his name in, hadn't been selected, but, this year he got selected, so it's really kudos to him. And, Chief Landry sent me a very nice note saying, that this was part of his, really his, continuity of, command, et cetera, and, just to make sure that people keep training and moving forward. So it's kudos to Captain Benoit.
Very good news. Mr. Hawks?
Well, I just wanted to report, tying into the Schultz family project, which is moving along very quickly. And I happened to be out on the waters of Lake Boone at 5:30 this afternoon, and I noted that a lot of the volunteer labor on rebuilding the Schultz house, it's something to watch. There was a crew there at 5:30, and they weren't looking at watches, they weren't doing it. They were scrambling around, and they're climbing up there. And the construction of that house, it's got steel beams in it. There's all the 2x4s, but the support for the second floor,
Steel.
they've got a steel beam going right down the middle and across the front. It's interesting construction. You might, any
commercial.
of you that are interested, take a ride down Barton Road before it gets sheathed in. It's kind of an interesting thing. Anyway, Lake Boone again is wrapping up the summer season, as hard as it is to believe, with the Water Carnival this weekend, which has a lot of events for, and it isn't just for Lake people, it's open to anybody in town, or some of our neighboring towns for that matter. The event kicks off Friday night with a music boat, which is partially supported by the Cultural Council grant, Mass and Town of Stow, for a band that plays on a boat going around, and the residents are encouraged to light the lake, which is it's tradition going back over 100 years in Stow and Hudson on the lake. It's technology's different, but it's a good event. And there's kids events on Saturday, water events, field events at Pine Bluff. The Lake Association runs a cookout fundraiser. And Sunday morning, yours truly is piloting a history boat around the lake, giving a historical narrative, which I've done for several years. And in the afternoon is a decorated boat parade. So it's a great community. It's a way that the lake community gives back to the town through the Lake Association.
We always love to
And
hear about the
I
Lake
would
Boone
just,
Festival.
well, I'd just like to pass these out with a comment, because this is a new, it's obviously, the lake hasn't changed shape, but since I gave one to Maureen for our records, this is, by the way, kudos to Stephen O'Riordan, who worked with Chris Craven on putting this particular map rendition together and brought it back before us, the commission. It clearly identifies the different narrows. The impetus to do this was to post it at the boat launch on Sudbury Road, which it has now been laminated and put up there with other information that has been supplied. But I was gonna make this available, Linda.
It's online.
It's online, but,
Yeah.
okay, so that if people, if you want some, you can
Put
print.
them out on the
print-
counter?
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's pretty much it. One of the things I feel kind of badly about is one of my main liaison assignments is the planning board, and they always meet Tuesday nights. Now, I get to some of them because they do meet a lot more frequently than we do. So there are some things frequently that when I review their agenda, I said, gee, I wish I needed to keep my thumb on the scale, or at least observe the scale.
Well, Ms. Knox, if you ever feel the need to leave one of our meetings to go up there, would understand.
But then you would be without a clerk. At any rate, I'm done. Thank you.
And before I hear from Mr. Salvi, I want to put all the time pressure on him. I'm just going to say that last week, the cemetery committee met, and because they were looking for a liaison, I appointed myself. And we talked generally about reorganization. The purpose has been, Mike Clayton was there, nothing firm was ever decided, but it's a vehicle for moving forward. And I got a better idea of cemetery operations, so to speak, and their needs. Yes. It's interesting to see about, yes. Mr. Salvi, time's on.
I'm all that stands between us and going home, so, two really quick things. Library trustees met last week and discussed, their proposed renovation plans, not the historical restoration that's currently going on or is about to go on, but the longer term, what do we do with the Randall Library kind of project that Bill has mentioned on several occasions. And they made the important decision to, whatever their plans will be, they will stay at the Randall Library. They had been considering seeking some other location. Probably a good decision. That, of course, ties into our facilities discussion about parking. So just going back to your policy matter for a second, Mr. Chairman, I think that facilities thing is a huge policy thing. I want to suggest one other issue that we used to talk about a lot years ago. The Assabet River Rail Trail, the section of the Assabet River Rail Trail that goes from the Stow line to the center of Maynard opened recently. Maynard is very excited about it. They're
kicking butt.
A lot of businesses are anticipating a lot of cyclists going through there. We should maybe invite Don Rising to come in. We spent a lot more time on the Assabet River Rail Trail when there was a possibility of it going through Stow. There isn't really much of a possibility anymore. But I think they have plans to maybe one day go down through the National Wildlife Refuge and hook up with the Mass Central Trail, which of course is still theoretical. But it would be good to get Don in and just get an update from him on that. And I think there's huge possibilities for Stow from that rail trail being open.
Could you send me a email, and I'll put it on a future agenda after we check to see Don Rising's availability.
Sure.
And we're gonna get a new chart of our liaison appointments with me on cemetery. Anything further, Mrs. Salvi?
Nothing, thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous consent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you, Madam Tom.